Constructions in geometry. Traditionally, they were done with a compass, which is a pointed tool on one end with a hinge and some kind of a pen on the other. And I guess I got that backwards. Here's the point and here's the pen or pencil. And you can adjust the angle through that hinge there, and that hinge is supposed to be stiff or tightenable. And then a straight edge, which is just literally a straight edge. It doesn't have any markings to denote inches or centimeters or anything like that. So traditional constructions in geometry are just compass and straight edge. They're challenging, but you can do quite a bit with them. Now we're going to modify that a little bit, and we're going to incorporate a ruler and a protractor. And so with a ruler we can measure distance, and with a protractor we can measure angle. And traditionally we use degrees, but there are several other ways to measure an angle. Now, I'm also going to take a look here at Geogebra, which is a geometry math tool that does all kinds of great stuff. And as far as the traditional construction tools in Geogebra, we need to mark points and draw line segments and lines. We need to find intersections of circles and lines and lines and lines. We need to make circles based on a center and another point, which is kind of what the compass tool does also. So as far as the compass goes, when you set your compass to a particular distance, the stiffness in that joint there is supposed to be set so that when you pick the compass up, you can reproduce that same distance elsewhere. So distances are reproducible by the compass, not the straight edge. Straight edge is just for drawing straight lines. And the compass is for drawing circles or marking off a particular distance repeatedly. All right. And then as far as the modifications go, when we start incorporating a protractor and a ruler, that's where we can measure angles, like with a protractor, and measure distances on a line, or have a circle with a particular distance for a radius. And so these tools right here would not be part of a traditional construction. But again, we're just going to ease up a little bit on the traditional construction because they can be kind of tough. So let's just play with Geogebra for a little exercise. If you search for Geogebra, you should get a link to geogebra.org, and they have a whole bunch of different tools. The Start Graphing tool takes you to the graphing calculator, which is not what we want, although you can do this stuff in the graphing calculator. My preference is to use either the Geometry app over here or the Classic app, and I'm going to use the Geometry app because it's a little bit cleaner. It's just slightly harder to find the tools that you want, but the clean environment is kind of nice. So let's check it out. So you get this nice blank canvas here with which to work in, and then they give you just some of the basic tools here. So here are some of the tools that would be used for, say, a straight edge. I can draw lines and I can mark points. The polygon tool is a bit more complex. We'll look at that later. And then circle with center is kind of like using a compass. If you hit more, then you get a ton of other tools, and you know, we could spend all quarter playing with these tools. And there's a yet more again, and that lays out all of the possible tools, and they're sorted by category. And so the main ones I'm going to use were pointed out back here, and they are finding, let's undo that, line segments and points and intersections, making repeatable distances with a circle and a center, which is like the compass tool. I'm not going to use the compass tool. I like the circle center one better. And then we'll measure some angles also. So we'll use some of those tools there. And so what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to try and draw a regular polygon. Now, I can do that there's a tool down here further. Let's see, called regular polygon, and it will make everything for you, but we're going to do a little bit of work there. Oh, and this is Morwenna the Great. Hi, Morwenna. Oh, geez. Excuse me there. So the regular polygon tool is where you make a line segment to start with, and then the system will turn that into a regular polygon. So if we had a regular polygon with 4 vertices, that would be a regular quadrilateral, which is a square, right? You got it. I could go 5 sides, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to make a regular pentagon, but instead of using their tool, I'm going to kind of, ooh, help. Every once in a while, you got to redo. Sorry, one of the grid distracted me there. Sometimes you have to switch to the move tool if you want to actually move the screen or move an object. Okay, so let's undo that and that and that and that. All right. So I'm just going to kind of sketch out what I want to do, and then we'll try to do it with GeoGebra. So new page. What I want to do is draw a regular pentagon, and I don't want it to automatically happen. I want to, exercise kind of a modified construction. And to do that, what I want to do is start off with a couple of points, and then I would have a line through those points. And then that's kind of my baseline. And then I want to kind of go around drawing this. So I have to head out this way at the right angle and stop at the right point so that I'm at the same distance, because I want this distance to match that distance. And then whatever this angle is right there, I want to head out at that angle again and the right distance again. So this distance, and that distance should match. And then I want to repeat that same angle as these two and head out again, matching the distance. And then if all goes well, I should be able to repeat that angle and the distance and get back where I started. And then this should be a regular pentagon where I have 5 congruent angles and 5 congruent sides or edges. So that's the goal we're going to try and pull off right now with GeoGebra. And just not have it happen automatically. We're just going to work at it a little bit. Why would we work at it? Well, it's good for our brains. All right, so I'm going to start off with a line. So I'm going to hit the line tool, and the line tool just says, hey, mark a point, and then, hey, click, make another point. And once you put those points and lines there, most things end up being movable. It kind of depends on how you put them there, but for the most part, you can kind of move them around. All right, so here's my A and my B. And then what I want to do is I want to pick an angle to go out from A here so that I'm in the right direction to make a regular pentagon. Now, hopefully you've already done a little bit of studying and you know what that vertex angle or interior angle for a regular pentagon is. If not, you're going to have to do a little bit of arithmetic. Eventually you'll come to the conclusion that it's 108 degrees. So now I want to kind of scroll through my tools here, and I'm looking for a tool that makes an angle. Now this one here measures an angle given 3 points or 2 lines. This one right here makes an angle of a given size, and so that's the one I want. And every once in a while I'm confused about what the tool does, and I'm just going to kind of try it out and see what happens. So explore, feel free to get things wrong and try again. So the way this tool works is you start on the outer point, and then the second point is where the angle comes from. And then you can choose to measure that angle counterclockwise or clockwise. And I'm going to go counterclockwise because I'm looking for a line out in this direction from point A. And I don't want 45 degrees, I want 108. So leave the degree symbol there and just replace whatever angle you want. So if you're making an octagon, you would have a different angle there. Choose OK, and then what GeoGebra does is says, okay, let's head out in that direction, and then it puts a point here called B prime that's in a congruent distance away from A. So the distance from A to B is the same as the distance from A to B prime. And that's kind of a classic construction move there, but we also get an angle measure. Sometimes when these things get thrown down, like the name of the thing and the measure of the thing, they might overlap. So you can always switch back to the move tool, and you could move either of these names or measures so it's more readable. And eventually I want a line segment in here, but I'm not kind of worried about that too much. What I want to do is I want to head out from this direction again 108 degrees out that way. And so I can just keep using the angle tool repeatedly and worry about drawing line segments later, because GeoGebra nicely makes that point for me that's in the right distance away from vertex A. So I'm going to continue with the angle of a given size. And again, to measure an angle from B prime, I would have to start at A and then go to B prime. And again, I want to continue in the counterclockwise direction because the angle is going to measure from the point, from the line AB prime. So it's going to head around that way. Continue with 108 degrees. And you can see it drew it in the right direction. If you happen to guess wrong about the clockwise, counterclockwise, which some days, I didn't have enough to eat, or I didn't have enough coffee or enough sleep or whatever, I guess wrong, right? And you can always undo and redraw it. And so if you get the direction wrong, just try again. So if you thought it was clockwise and it should have been counterclockwise or vice versa, undo, try again. So you get this nice undo button sitting there. So I'm trying again, head around. And again, what it's going to do is it's going to replicate this distance, but at that angle from the line segment I started in. Even though I can't see the line segment, it still imagines that there's a line between these 2 points right here. And I can just continue to do that. So I'm still on the angle with a given size. And I go from the outer point to the vertex point and keep going. So, okay. And now I have all 5 points and I have 108, 108, 108. So let's see if this works. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the regular polygon tool, which just makes an arbitrary polygon. So if I just use it over here and I go click, 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 click. So here's some arbitrary pentagon. Okay, it's not regular, it's not equilateral, it's not equiangular, it's just 5 points that make a pentagon. So I'm just going to use that tool here by working my way around, just because I would like to have some boundaries on the edge and I like the pretty shading that they make there. To double check that these two angles are indeed 108, I can give that angle measure tool a try, and it just says angle, select 3 points or 2 lines, and if you hit the help button you can get more help, and that goes away after a second. So if you click back on it, it brings the description up, and it's a pretty vague description, assuming it's just kind of a reminder if you used it before. And if you haven't used it before, hit help. That'll take you to the manuals and examples, and you can get some help there. And these tools change over time, and they've modified it from the last time I used it, but I'm pretty sure I'm just going to, if I want the angle at B double prime here, I want to select 3 points so that B double prime is in the middle. So I would go A prime, B double prime, and then B, and it says, hey, yeah, that's an angle that measures, it looks like 108 to me, 108 degrees. You can also use that tool by selecting 2 lines, it said. So let's try that. Where'd it go? Did I go past it? Oh, there it is. And so I should be able to select this line and that line. It will find the angle between the 2 lines. Did I miss? There we go. And it says, I think that says 108 again, which means I did my construction correctly. And again, this is not a traditional construction because I violated the rule of using only a compass and a straight edge. I threw in a protractor here. And Geogebra actually threw in kind of a ruler, sort of, kind of, by replicating this distance, although that can be done with just a compass. Again, if you're confused about the words I'm using there, just a reminder that a protractor is a circular thing usually where it's got markings in degrees typically. It could have sometimes markings in another system called radians. And then a compass is this hinged pointed joint thing with a pencil on one side and a pointy thing to stick in the paper on another. A straight edge is not a ruler, it's just a straight edge. Okay, so that's tradition. We're modifying, we're bucking tradition a little bit by throwing in a ruler and a protractor because it just makes a little exploration a little easier and a little more fun. So that's just one example. I'll come back with some others of playing around with GeoGebra. Thanks for playing with me. Bye-bye.